AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée move into my house after our parents died. I, 32F, recently lost both of my parents in a car accident. My brother, Mark, 35M, and I were both really close to them, but I ended up being named the executor of the estate because my parents trusted me to manage their affairs responsibly. One of the key decisions I had to make was about the family home, a large house in the suburbs that we grew up in. It has always held sentimental value for me, and I had told both Mark and my parents years ago that if anything ever happened to them, I would like to stay in the house. Mark has been with his fiancée, Lindsay, 30F, for about 2 years. From the beginning, I wasn't crazy about her. She seems nice enough on the surface, but she's very demanding and controlling, and she's had several disputes with my parents over seemingly minor things. I've witnessed her guilt-tripping Mark over money, choices, and time. I've tried to keep an open mind, but there's always been a little friction between us. Lindsay has also expressed in the past that she doesn't like my house because it's too old-fashioned and needs modernizing. I thought it was rude, but didn't comment at the time. After the funeral, Mark came over and told me he wanted to move in temporarily with Lindsay because they were between apartments. I was taken aback because the house is my home, filled with my parents' belongings and memories. I told him that the house wasn't available for temporary living and that he needed to make other arrangements. He got upset and said I was being unreasonable, arguing that it was just temporary and that we could make it work. I refused, saying that I didn't feel comfortable having them there and that it would be emotionally difficult for me. That led to an argument. Mark accused me of being selfish and not caring about him or Lindsay. He said our parents would want him to be taken care of and that he should be able to stay in the house if he needed it. I reminded him that our parents never explicitly said that the house should go to him and that they trusted me to make decisions in their absence. I tried to explain that I'm grieving too and that having him and Lindsay in the house would make it very hard for me to process everything. He said I was overreacting and that I was prioritizing stuff over family. A few days later, Lindsay called me to discuss it separately. She was very sweet at first, but then she started saying things like, "You don't have to be alone in the house, and Mark and I could help you with expenses if you let us stay." I explained again that it's not about money or help. It's about personal boundaries and emotional space. She then tried to guilt me by implying that I was selfish for cutting off family, when I was the one handling everything after our parents' death. The conversation ended with her saying I was making life unnecessarily difficult, and that Mark might have to reconsider our relationship if I didn't let them move in. Over the past few weeks, Mark has been alternating between sulking, calling me to convince me, and dropping hints about how Lindsay is upset with me. I've tried to remain firm but polite, explaining that while I care about him and understand he's grieving, I am not comfortable sharing the house with him and Lindsay. He then accused me of being cruel and heartless, and he started involving other family members, asking them to pressure me. Some relatives have suggested that I let them stay for even a short time to avoid family drama, but I feel like that completely undermines my feelings. Here's the thing. The house isn't just a building to me. It's where I grew up, where my parents raised us, and where I feel connected to them. Letting Mark and Lindsay move in would feel like losing that sanctuary. Lindsay has already expressed disdain for the house and has indicated that she would want to make significant changes, which would feel like an erasure of my family's legacy. I also worry about the dynamic. Having someone so controlling and manipulative around during a period of grief would be emotionally exhausting. On the other hand, I do love my brother, and I know he's hurting. I don't want him to feel abandoned. But I feel like a temporary apartment, a hotel, or even staying with friends would be far healthier for both of us. I've tried to explain this, but he interprets it as me putting objects over people. I don't want to hurt him, but I also don't want to compromise my emotional well-being during a very vulnerable time. Some extended family members have started taking sides, which makes things even more tense. I've had cousins tell me I'm being rigid and selfish, while others say I'm within my rights to maintain boundaries. Mark has even hinted that if I continue to refuse, he might consider legal action to claim temporary occupancy or challenge the will, though I doubt he would actually do it. I've stayed calm and not retaliated, but the tension is constant. I'm starting to wonder if I really am being selfish. Am I prioritizing a house over my grieving brother? Or is it reasonable for me to set boundaries during a time when my emotional space is crucial? I'm also aware that the way Mark and Lindsay are reacting might be influenced by their personalities and how they perceive control, which complicates things further. I just want to mourn my parents in the house they loved without feeling like I'm in a constant battle over who gets to live there temporarily. I've considered proposing a compromise, like letting them visit during the day or stay for one night, but I worry that any leniency will open the door to pressure, guilt trips, and more conflict. I also fear that if I relent, it will set a precedent where they feel entitled to dictate how I manage my parents' belongings and space. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother and his fiancée move into the house after our parents' death. Even though he is grieving and feels he has a right to be there temporarily, I want to protect my emotional well-being, honor my parents' memory, and maintain boundaries. But I also love my brother and don't want to cause lasting damage to our relationship. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after she moved in with her new boyfriend. I, 34F, have always been the responsible one in my family. My parents are divorced, and I've basically taken on the role of the adult whenever family drama happens. I live in a modest 3-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city, and I love my space. I have my own routines, my own schedule, and I value my peace and quiet. I work a 9-to-5 job, and I'm very particular about how I manage my home. I also live alone, so I'm used to doing things my way without considering anyone else's habits or mess. My sister, Karen, 28F, is very different from me. She's impulsive, disorganized, and has a history of making poor financial choices. She's had a few short-term relationships that ended badly, and her life has always been a bit chaotic. Recently, she started dating someone new, Mike, 30M, who seems like a decent guy, but also has a very different lifestyle from mine. They decided to move in together, which in theory I think is fine. My issue is with what followed. About a month ago, Karen called me in a panic. She had just moved in with Mike, but she realized that his apartment is really small, and she didn't want her 2 kids, Emma, 6, and Luke, 4, staying there full-time. She asked if I could let the kids stay with me temporarily. I reminded her that I live alone in a small space, but she assured me it would only be for a few nights until they figured out a better arrangement. She was very emotional and guilt-tripped me a little, saying she didn't want to burden Mike and she was desperate. I agreed reluctantly, thinking it would be fine for a few nights. But when they arrived, things immediately got chaotic. Emma and Luke are high-energy kids, and my apartment isn't child-proofed at all. They knocked over a lamp within an hour, spilled juice on my carpet, and kept running around screaming. I tried to maintain patience, but I realized quickly that a few nights was already stretching into a week. Karen kept texting me, saying she was busy with work and errands, and Mike was out of town for a few days, so could the kids just stay a bit longer? I tried to set boundaries, explaining that I work from 9 to 5, I can't watch them constantly, and my apartment isn't equipped for long-term child care. Karen responded with guilt trips, saying things like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," and "they need their auntie right now." I started feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and trapped. After a week, I sat Karen down for a serious conversation. I told her that I couldn't continue hosting the kids and that she needed to make other arrangements. I suggested daycare, hiring a babysitter, or alternating time with Mike's family. She got really defensive and angry, accusing me of being selfish and uncaring. She said I knew what I was signing up for being the older sister and that I should step up because family is supposed to help each other. I explained that helping doesn't mean taking on full-time responsibility for her children, especially without notice or preparation. I pointed out that my life and routines were disrupted significantly and that I'm not trained or equipped to manage full-time childcare for energetic kids in my small apartment. She then accused me of playing favorites because I apparently spend more time with my brother's kids, who visit occasionally, but she claimed I handle those kids because they are easier. That hurt because I genuinely thought I was helping without bias. I told her firmly that the kids needed to go back to her place or that she needed to find another solution. She left angry, saying she'd never ask me for anything again, and I felt guilty for a bit, but I also felt relieved. The next day, she texted me a long message accusing me of being heartless, and family doesn't mean you dump your responsibilities on others. She said she had told other family members, and they think I'm being unreasonable. Since then, some relatives have subtly asked me why I didn't let her stay longer or why I'm so strict about helping family. My mom called me and seemed disappointed, suggesting that I could have been more understanding. Karen, meanwhile, found a babysitter and is trying to get Mike's apartment more child-friendly, so the kids aren't staying at my place anymore. I still feel some guilt, but I also feel justified because my apartment wasn't suitable and I felt pushed beyond my comfort level. I know families help each other, but I also believe there are limits. I don't think being a responsible adult means letting someone else take advantage of your space and time. Now I'm worried I've caused a rift with Karen and other family members who think I should have been more accommodating. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after her move-in didn't work out. AITA for refusing to take care of my brother's kids after a messy divorce. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger brother, Mike, 28M. Growing up, we were inseparable, sharing a lot of our childhood experiences, family holidays, and even a few terrible teenage pranks. As adults, our lives have taken different directions. I pursued a career in publishing and have been living in a bustling city for the past 7 years. Mike, on the other hand, stayed in our hometown, married his high school sweetheart, and had 2 kids, Emma, 6F, and Noah, 3M. For most of his marriage, I had a fairly distant but cordial relationship with my brother and his wife. I'd visit during holidays or when they came into the city for a family event, but nothing too involved. Everything changed when Mike and his wife, Julia, separated last year. The divorce was messy. I don't want to get into all the details, but it involved a lot of accusations from both sides, a contentious custody arrangement, and a flurry of legal back and forth. Mike ended up getting joint custody, but the children would primarily stay with Julia. I tried to stay neutral, offering emotional support to Mike, but never really stepping into the middle of the mess. A few months after the divorce, Mike reached out to me. He said he was struggling to manage work and the kids on his custody days. He wanted me to watch Emma and Noah during the weekdays for several hours because he had important meetings and deadlines. I was shocked. I live in a different city, work full-time, and don't have a flexible schedule. I also don't have kids, so the thought of suddenly becoming the primary caregiver for 2 young children was overwhelming. I politely explained all this, suggesting that he hire a local babysitter or ask his neighbors for help. He seemed frustrated, but accepted it at the time. A few weeks later, Mike called me again. He had apparently failed to find anyone else to help and insisted that I should watch the kids because I was family and family helps each other out. I explained again that I simply could not, but he kept pushing, saying things like, "You don't understand how hard it is," and "I raised you. Now it's your turn to help me." That last comment stung because it implied some kind of obligation that I never agreed to. I even tried to offer alternatives, like connecting him with professional childcare services in his area or suggesting he adjust his work schedule, but nothing seemed to satisfy him. The tension escalated when he started making comments on social media about how hard it is to be a single parent and how nobody in the family helps him, which I felt was indirectly aimed at me. Our parents are involved to some extent, but live 2 hours away and have their own commitments, so I wasn't going to drop everything just because he was frustrated. I finally told him, more firmly this time, that I would not be taking care of his kids. I emphasized that while I loved him and cared about his children, my life simply did not allow me to provide the level of care he was asking for. He reacted angrily. He accused me of being selfish, claiming that I didn't care about him or the kids, and that I was abandoning family when they needed me most. He said things like, "I can't believe you're choosing your job in your city over your own family, and you're supposed to have my back, and now you're just disappearing when we need you." Our parents were caught in the middle and tried to mediate, saying things like, "Can't you at least do it occasionally?" But I still said no. I offered to help in other ways, like visiting the kids when possible, sending gifts, or even being on video calls during his work hours. But direct caregiving during weekdays was a deal breaker. The situation has now caused a serious rift between us. Mike won't speak to me unless it's about family gatherings or emergencies, and family events have become tense. Some relatives have subtly hinted that I should step up for my brother, and I've received messages from mutual friends expressing disappointment that I'm not helping. It's exhausting because I feel like I'm being judged for prioritizing my own responsibilities and boundaries. At the same time, I feel guilty for causing a rift, but I genuinely believe that taking on 2 children while managing my own career and life would be unfair to all of us, especially since I'm not equipped for it. I also feel frustrated because the idea that family obligations should automatically mean sacrificing your own life for someone else's problems doesn't sit right with me. I'm willing to be supportive in emotional or occasional social ways, but the expectation that I step in as a weekday caregiver without notice or planning feels unreasonable. I've tried to explain this multiple times, but Mike seems to see it as a personal attack. So, AITA for refusing to take care of my brother's kids after his divorce. I love my brother and the children, but I feel like I have the right to say no without being vilified. I don't want to lose my relationship with him completely, but I also can't allow myself to be guilt-tripped into a role I am not ready or willing to take on. I know some people might argue that I should help because he's family, but I feel there's a line between helping and being expected to take on responsibilities that could disrupt my entire life. I've even considered hiring someone local to supervise the kids occasionally, but Mike has refused that, insisting only I can do it. I guess what I need to know is, am I being unreasonable for setting these boundaries and saying no, even if it hurts my brother? Or should I swallow my discomfort and step in for the sake of family? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering her fiancé's past. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in a small town where family ties were strong, and despite the usual sibling fights, we've always had each other's backs. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 27M, for about 3 years. From the beginning, I was cautiously optimistic about their relationship. Mark seemed polite and charming whenever he came around, though I have to admit I never felt a strong connection with him. Over the last few months, Emily and Mark started talking seriously about getting married. When they announced their engagement last month, I was happy for her, but something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I had a lingering sense of unease. Emily is incredibly trusting and tends to see the best in people, and I worry that she might be overlooking certain red flags. A few weeks ago, I had a casual conversation with a mutual friend, Sarah, 28F, who mentioned that Mark had a history of questionable behavior in his previous relationships. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I asked for specifics. Sarah told me that Mark had a reputation for emotional manipulation and controlling behavior in past relationships. She didn't go into much detail, but what she did say was enough to set off alarm bells. I tried to brush it off at first. Emily has always been able to handle herself, and I reminded myself that people can change. Still, I felt compelled to do a little research. I searched online and found several old forum posts and social media comments from people who claimed to have dated Mark. The stories weren't flattering. They described him as charming at first, but quick to anger when challenged, possessive, and manipulative. I even found a public record of a restraining order filed by an ex-girlfriend years ago, though it was dismissed due to lack of evidence. I didn't know what to do with this information. On one hand, I didn't want to ruin Emily's happiness based on rumors and hearsay. On the other hand, I felt a responsibility to protect her if these claims were true. I decided to confront Emily privately. I told her what I had found and asked her to reconsider marrying Mark without knowing the full story. I expected her to at least pause and look into it herself, but she reacted differently than I anticipated. Emily was furious. She accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship and said I was overstepping my bounds. She insisted that she knew Mark better than anyone and that I had no right to interfere. I tried to remain calm, but she wouldn't listen. She even told me that she had seen a different side of Mark and believed that he had changed, and that my sources were unreliable and biased. I argued that dismissing the accounts of multiple people seemed reckless, but she didn't want to hear it. The situation escalated when Emily invited me to her engagement party. I debated attending, but ultimately, I decided I couldn't bring myself to celebrate someone I believed might be abusive. I sent her a message explaining that I couldn't attend her engagement party or her wedding unless she had thoroughly investigated Mark's past. I told her I would support her in any way I could after she made an informed decision, but I couldn't blindly endorse the marriage. Emily responded with anger and disappointment. She said that I was being judgmental and selfish, that I was choosing my fears over her happiness, and that our relationship might suffer irreparably because of my refusal to attend. Our parents were upset as well. They argued that it wasn't my place to interfere and that family should stand by her, regardless of the situation. My father told me that my actions were divisive and that I was making a big deal out of things that might not even be true. A week later, my cousin, who had recently reconnected with Mark, reached out to me privately. She told me that Mark had confided in her about past relationships, admitting that he could be controlling and manipulative, and that he had intentionally misled Emily about certain aspects of his past. She warned me to be cautious, saying that Emily was unaware of the full picture. After receiving this confirmation, I felt even more conflicted. I still love my sister and want the best for her, but I feel that attending her wedding would be giving implicit approval to something I genuinely believe could harm her emotionally. I offered Emily one last conversation, laying out everything I had learned and urging her to reconsider, but she refused to engage. She told me bluntly that if I didn't attend her wedding, I was effectively choosing her fiancé over her. I haven't spoken to Emily since then. She sent me a wedding invite with a note that said, "I hope you come, but I understand if you don't. I just hope you can respect my choices." I haven't RSVP'd. My parents are disappointed, saying I'm making the situation worse and alienating my sister. My friends are divided. Some agree with me for looking out for Emily, while others say I should put family above my concerns and attend anyway. I feel trapped. I want to support my sister, but I also feel that ignoring the warning signs would be irresponsible. I keep going back and forth in my head. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend a wedding because I believe the groom is potentially dangerous, even though my sister insists she's happy and in love? Or would attending make me complicit in something harmful? I've tried to approach this from a place of care and concern, but it's tearing our family apart, and I don't know how to reconcile my feelings with the expectations around me. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering her fiancé's past and potential abusive behavior. AITA for refusing to let my friend move in after she repeatedly ignored my boundaries during her last stay. I, 33F, have a longtime friend, Sarah, 32F, who has been going through a rough patch lately. She recently lost her job and was evicted from her apartment due to unpaid rent. Sarah reached out to me asking if she could move in temporarily while she figured things out. I value my friendship with her and wanted to help, but I also remembered the last time she stayed with me, which did not go well. About 2 years ago, Sarah stayed with me for 3 weeks while she was transitioning between jobs. At first, it seemed manageable. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, and she stayed in the guest room. We agreed that she would contribute to groceries and follow my house rules, which I clearly outlined. Keep common areas clean, respect quiet hours, and do not bring friends over without asking. Within the first few days, she started disregarding those rules. She would leave dirty dishes in the sink for days, leave clothes on the floor, and use my things without permission. I reminded her several times, but she would apologize and then continue the same behavior. It was frustrating because I had explicitly communicated my boundaries, but she seemed to think that staying in my apartment meant she could act however she wanted. The situation escalated when she brought over a few friends without asking, stayed out late, and returned with loud music playing. I had to confront her about it, and she became defensive, saying I was too uptight and controlling. She insisted that since I had offered my home, I should allow her some freedom. I tried to compromise by suggesting she could have friends over at specific times, but she ignored the compromise. By the end of the 3 weeks, I was exhausted, stressed, and had a lot of cleaning to do. I felt like my home had been disrespected. After she moved out, I thought it was best to take a break before offering extended help again. So when she reached out recently asking to move in temporarily due to her eviction, I was hesitant. I told her I was willing to help in other ways, like helping her look for short-term rentals, assisting with applications for financial aid, or letting her store a few essential items at my place while she arranged a new apartment. I explained that I could not host her full-time because of my work schedule, need for personal space, and the stress of managing a household with another adult who had previously disregarded boundaries. Sarah did not take this well. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, saying that friends are supposed to help each other during tough times. She insisted that I was the only person she could rely on and implied that I was prioritizing my comfort over her well-being. I explained again that my refusal to host her wasn't a lack of care, but a way to protect both of our mental health and my home. I also emphasized that helping her in practical ways, like finding housing or assistance programs, would be more effective and less stressful for both of us. Over the past few weeks, she has been distant and passive-aggressive. She sends messages suggesting that I don't care about our friendship and has even mentioned the situation to mutual friends, portraying me as unkind. Some friends have suggested I should just let her stay to avoid conflict, while others agree that I am within my rights to set boundaries. I feel hurt because I genuinely want to help her, but I cannot compromise my own life, safety, and mental well-being. AITA for refusing to let my friend move in after she repeatedly ignored my boundaries during her previous stay. I try to offer alternative ways to help her that do not involve compromising my home and routine, but she insists that staying with me is her only solution. I want to maintain our friendship and support her, but I also need to enforce boundaries that protect my space and sanity. Has anyone else had a friend or family member repeatedly request to live with them despite past issues? How did you say no firmly while preserving the relationship? I want to help Sarah in ways that are sustainable and safe for both of us, but I cannot risk repeating the same problems. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay over after a huge fight at my house. I, 34F, have a younger sister, Sarah, 29F, who has 3 kids, Liam, 7M, Emma, 5F, and Noah, 3M. My husband, Jake, 36M, and I have a 2-bedroom house that we've been slowly renovating over the past few years. We always knew it would be tight, but we made it work. Our home isn't huge, but it's cozy, and we're proud of it. We have a rule about visitors staying over, mostly because of how small our place is, and because we value our routine and personal space. A few weeks ago, Sarah called me out of the blue and asked if she could leave the kids at our place for a week while she went on a short work trip. She explained that she had a last-minute opportunity to attend a conference in another state, and she really didn't want to bring her kids along. She emphasized that it would be just the week, and she would make sure they packed everything they needed. I was hesitant, but didn't outright refuse at first. I told her I need to check with Jake, because a week is a long time with 3 kids in a 2-bedroom house. When I spoke to Jake, he was immediately concerned. We already have a toddler ourselves, and adding 3 more kids in the mix would make things chaotic. Not to mention, Liam and Emma have very high energy, and Noah still needs a lot of attention. Jake was worried about sleep schedules, meals, and general stress. I agreed with him, and we politely told Sarah that we couldn't host them for an entire week. I suggested maybe a shorter visit, like a day or 2 over the weekend. Sarah didn't seem pleased, but said she'd think about it. 2 weeks later, Sarah called again. This time she said she had booked her trip and really needed us to watch the kids, even if just for the week. I reminded her of our previous conversation and explained again why it would be impossible for us to host them that long. I tried to be firm but kind, explaining that it wasn't personal. We just physically couldn't handle it. Sarah got upset and started guilt-tripping me. She said that we never help her when she needs it, that we're selfish, and that we should step up for family. She also reminded me that our parents sometimes watch the kids, implying we should do the same. I stayed calm, saying that we do help when we can, but hosting 3 kids for a week in our small house was beyond what we could manage. Sarah's tone escalated, and she accused me of not loving her children. She said that they were our nieces and nephew, and that family should always be there. I told her I love her kids, but that doesn't mean we can compromise our own household and family routine. She hung up in a huff, saying she would figure something out, but that I should remember who your family is. A few days later, she showed up at our door unexpectedly with the kids, saying, "I thought maybe seeing you in person would help you understand." I was shocked. Jake was at work, and I didn't want to confront her with all 3 kids running around. I tried to stay calm and told her that we really couldn't have them stay over, not for a week. She started to argue, and the kids were excited, running around and making a mess. Liam spilled juice on the carpet, Noah threw his toys around, and Emma pulled a plant off the shelf. I asked Sarah again to take them home, explaining politely but firmly that we simply couldn't manage it. She refused, insisting that we owe it to the family. At that point, I called my parents to explain the situation and see if they could intervene. My mom came over and told Sarah she needed to leave because it wasn't fair to force someone to host that many kids against their will. Sarah reluctantly left, but she kept calling me all day, texting, and even leaving messages on social media, accusing me of being cold and uncaring. She said that the kids are traumatized because I turned them away, and that I'm letting her down as a sister. After all of this, I feel like I did the right thing. Our house is too small, and our lives are already busy with our own child. I was clear about my boundaries, and I tried to suggest alternatives like a shorter visit or having her parents watch the kids. I even offered to help in smaller ways, like picking them up from school or babysitting for a few hours, but she wasn't willing to compromise. Now, Sarah refuses to speak to me except through angry texts. She says I'm selfish and that family shouldn't put up such resistance. I feel guilty sometimes because I don't want to hurt my sister or her kids, but I also know that forcing a week-long stay would have been exhausting, stressful, and probably chaotic for everyone involved. I haven't told Jake how much the guilt is weighing on me, because I know he completely supports our decision, and he keeps reminding me that we were right to set boundaries. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay over after the fight and for standing by our limits. Even though she's accusing me of being selfish and uncaring, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from her bridal party. I, 29F, have always been close to my sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we shared a lot, from birthday sleepovers to our love of the same books and TV shows. We were best friends in our teenage years, and even though life has gotten busier, I thought we still had a strong bond. Emily got engaged last year to her fiancé, Mark, 34M, and naturally, I was thrilled for her. When she told me she was planning her wedding for this summer, I was excited to help in any way I could. I offered to assist with anything, from dress shopping to venue decorations. She was appreciative but non-committal. The issue started when she announced her bridal party. She has always had a very small group of friends she is close to and wanted only them as bridesmaids. I wasn't included. At first, I tried to brush it off, telling myself she might just want a smaller party. But then she went on social media and posted photos of the bridesmaids with captions about how they were her ride or die girls, and how she couldn't imagine getting married without them. I wasn't mentioned at all. I confronted her privately and said I felt hurt that she didn't even consider me. I asked her if it was strictly about the number of bridesmaids or if she just didn't want me involved. She told me it was about keeping the group small and that she didn't think I'd want to be in the bridal party anyway because I have a lot going on and travel frequently. She insisted she wanted me to be there on her wedding day, just as a guest. I tried to let it go, but my feelings kept building. It wasn't just about being a bridesmaid. It was the fact that she clearly didn't prioritize our relationship in this huge milestone of her life. It felt like she had drawn a line and excluded me from one of the most important roles in a wedding, which is usually reserved for the closest family or friends. The situation escalated when she started asking for my help with planning, even though I wasn't in the bridal party. She asked me to help with DIY decorations, organized the bachelorette party, and helped set up the rehearsal dinner. I felt used, especially since she never acknowledged my feelings about not being included as a bridesmaid. Every time I tried to set a boundary or explain that I was feeling hurt, she would say things like, "It's not about you. Don't take it personally. I just have a tight-knit group." A few weeks ago, she sent out invitations. I noticed that my invitation was in the very back of the pile, not even with the immediate family, which hurt more than I expected. My parents, who are very close to both of us, tried to mediate, suggesting I should just go and support Emily. They said, "It's her day, and she still wants you there." I didn't disagree that it's her wedding, but I felt like my presence was expected out of obligation, not genuine desire. I eventually told Emily that I wouldn't be attending. I explained that I loved her, I was happy for her, but I couldn't be part of a day where I felt completely excluded and where my relationship with her seemed secondary to a group of friends she's known for a few years. She was shocked and upset. She accused me of being dramatic, saying that I was overreacting and that my absence would hurt her deeply. Family and friends have been split on this. Some say I'm justified for standing up for my feelings and not pretending everything is fine. Others say I'm AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me after he caused chaos the last time. I, 34F, have a younger brother, Luke, 29M, who I've always been close to, but he has a long history of irresponsibility when it comes to finances, time management, and respecting other people's space. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, which I've worked hard to afford, and I value my quiet routine and personal space. A few years ago, Luke went through a rough patch. He lost his job and subsequently his apartment. At the time, I offered to let him stay temporarily while he got back on his feet, under the condition that he respect my house rules, contribute to bills if his stay extended beyond a week, and follow a schedule that worked with my work-from-home setup. At first, things seemed okay. He stayed in the guest room, helped with small chores, and didn't make a fuss. But by the 3rd day, he started ignoring the rules. He would leave dishes in the sink for days, pile clothes on the floor, and constantly play loud music even though I was working from home. I reminded him politely, but he would apologize briefly and continue the same behavior. He also started using my personal items without asking, including my laptop and kitchen supplies. By the end of the first week, Luke had brought over friends without permission, stayed out late, and left the apartment in chaos every morning. He argued with me when I asked him to clean up, saying I was too controlling and not letting him relax. I tried compromising by giving him specific times when he could have guests over or listen to music, but he disregarded the schedule entirely. I also noticed that he was spending my groceries and leaving wrappers and containers all over the counters. After 2 weeks, it was clear that he had no intention of adhering to the agreements we set. I asked him to either start paying rent or find another place to stay. He became defensive and started guilt-tripping me, saying I was selfish and not helping family, and accusing me of turning my back on him when he needed me. He even contacted our parents to complain that I was making life difficult for him, which created tension in the family. I tried to offer reasonable alternatives. I helped him look for affordable apartments, assisted him with job applications, and researched temporary housing programs. He refused every option, insisting that staying with me was the only solution and claiming that moving out would be impossible because he had no one else to turn to. Every attempt to explain why hosting him indefinitely wasn't feasible was met with hostility and frustration. When I finally told him he had to move out immediately, he reacted angrily, shouting that I was choosing my comfort over family and turning my home into a prison. He even tried to pack his things slowly, making the process unnecessarily stressful. Mark, our mutual friend, tried to mediate but confirmed that Luke had consistently violated boundaries and ignored agreements. Since he moved out, our relationship has been tense. Luke is distant and passive-aggressive, occasionally sending texts that imply I abandoned him. Our parents are divided. Some understand that I needed to protect my space and mental health, while others feel I should have been more accommodating. I feel conflicted because I genuinely care about Luke and want him to succeed, but I also need to enforce boundaries to maintain my own stability and well-being. AITA for refusing to let my brother stay with me after he repeatedly ignored my rules and disrespected my home during his previous stay. I tried to help in other ways, offered compromises, and attempted to be fair, but he disregarded everything. Now, I want to maintain a relationship with him without compromising my personal space, financial security, and peace of mind. Has anyone else dealt with a family member who repeatedly requests to live with them despite causing chaos previously? How do you enforce boundaries firmly without permanently damaging the relationship? I want to support Luke in ways that are sustainable and safe for both of us, but I cannot allow history to repeat itself. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not wanting my sister's wedding to be held at my house after what happened last time. This is going to be long because there's a lot of context, but I really need some outside perspective because my family is divided and I honestly don't know if I'm being unreasonable. A little background first. I, 34F, have a house that I've lived in for about 6 years now. It's not huge, but it's comfortable for me, my husband, 36M, and our 2 kids, 6M and 4F. I live in a suburban area with a decent-sized backyard and a finished basement. My sister, Claire, 32F, got engaged about a year ago, and since then she's been planning her wedding. From the beginning, she's been very vocal about wanting it to be a family affair, which basically means she wants it to be at a family member's home instead of a traditional venue. At first, I was fine with it and even offered my house, thinking it would be a nice way to save money and keep it personal. My husband and I love hosting parties, and we thought it could be fun. Fast forward to last year, Claire decided to host her rehearsal dinner at my house. I spent weeks preparing, cleaning, and rearranging furniture. I got catering involved, hired a small bartender, and even set up a temporary outdoor tent because we were expecting about 50 guests. I thought everything was fine until the day of the rehearsal dinner. From the moment people started arriving, it was chaos. My backyard was muddy from a rainstorm the night before. The caterers were running behind, and my kids were crying because they hadn't napped. But the biggest issue was how everyone treated my house. Guests were walking around in wet shoes despite me asking people to use the mats. Someone spilled red wine on the carpet, and my husband's brand new barbecue got scratched. I tried to stay calm, but I ended up snapping at some people for touching things they shouldn't have. Claire seemed oblivious and kept taking photos, which I later realized she was going to post on social media. The night ended with a fight. One of my aunts accidentally broke a vase, and when I expressed frustration, Claire told me I was ruining the family's happiness and that I should just let things happen. My husband and I stayed up all night cleaning and fixing damages. It was exhausting, and honestly, it left a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't feel appreciated at all. I thought maybe it was a one-time thing and tried to let it go, but it was hard. Now, a few months later, Claire is planning the actual wedding. She came to me last week and asked if we could host at our house. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with it after what happened with the rehearsal dinner. She got very defensive, saying that I'm being selfish and that I should want my family to have a memorable experience. She keeps saying it's just another party and that I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. I tried explaining that the wedding would be much bigger than the rehearsal dinner, with over 120 guests, and that I don't want my house to be damaged or my children stressed by the noise and chaos. I even suggested alternative venues nearby that are affordable, but she insists that it won't be the same and that it will ruin her dream wedding if it's not at a family member's home. My parents are involved too. They think I'm overreacting and that I should just be a good sister and allow the wedding at my house. My husband is on my side, but he's trying to stay out of the family drama. I've tried to explain that I love Claire and want to support her, but hosting a full wedding at my house is beyond what I'm willing to handle. She accused me of not caring about her happiness, which really hurt. I feel like she's being unreasonable, expecting me to sacrifice my home, my peace of mind, and the well-being of my kids for a dream wedding. To make things more complicated, Claire has started guilt-tripping our parents, telling them that I'm being difficult and that she doesn't understand why. I wouldn't want to help her. She also keeps dropping hints about how I'm selfish and unhelpful when she posts on social media about her wedding planning. I've been trying to stay calm and not engage publicly, but it's stressful. I even considered offering financial help instead of using my house. But she doesn't want money. She wants the personal touch of a home wedding. I feel like I'm caught in a tricky spot. On one hand, I want to support my sister and be part of her special day. On the other hand, I feel like she's asking too much and not respecting my boundaries. My home is my sanctuary, and the rehearsal dinner fiasco was proof that hosting an event like this can be overwhelming and damaging. I don't want to deal with that stress again, and I certainly don't want to end up resenting her or my parents. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after what happened last time. I've offered alternatives, I've tried explaining my concerns, and I even offer financial support, but she's insisting and my parents are pressuring me. I just don't want to be the villain here, but I also don't want to put myself and my family through another chaotic experience. I feel like I've already been more than generous by hosting the rehearsal dinner, and I'm worried that saying no will permanently damage our relationship. I need honest opinions. Am I being unreasonable for setting this boundary, or should I just suck it up for my sister's sake? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my home and my family? I, 32F, have always considered myself close to my younger sister, Mia, 28F, even though we have very different personalities. I live in a modest, older home in a quiet suburb. It's not fancy, but it's clean, cozy, and I've made it a place my friends and family love to visit. Mia, on the other hand, has always been a bit of a perfectionist and has a taste for luxury, which has sometimes led to tension between us. I've generally tolerated her criticism over the years, knowing she just has high standards. Earlier this year, Mia got engaged to her fiancé, Jordan, 30M, and immediately began discussing wedding plans. She wanted a small, intimate wedding at a local venue, but after seeing my house, she apparently decided she wanted to use it instead. I was surprised when she asked, but I figured, fine, she's my sister, and I can host her. I even began clearing my schedule and making arrangements to accommodate a wedding party of about 40 people. A few weeks into planning, Mia started pointing out issues with my home. At first, it was little things. The carpet isn't neutral enough. The living room furniture is too bulky for pictures, and the backyard isn't spacious enough for her vision. I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just being particular about her wedding photos. Then she made comments about my family. She said that her cousin, who would be attending, would not survive seeing my home and my parents, who are loud and sometimes messy, in the same space. She said my parents might ruin the aesthetic she was going for. I was hurt. My parents aren't perfect, but they are kind, hard-working people. They've never once insulted Mia or anyone else, and they've gone out of their way to help with family events. I tried to tell Mia that her comments were hurtful and inappropriate. I suggested she could compromise, maybe host the wedding elsewhere or adjust her expectations. She responded by saying I was too sensitive and that it's my day, and she didn't have to host it if she couldn't handle criticism. At that point, I realized that hosting this wedding would make me uncomfortable and stressed. I also began to feel resentful because Mia's comments weren't just about the house. They were about my family and the life I've built. After talking with my parents, we all agreed that her request was unreasonable. I called Mia and explained that I couldn't host her wedding because I felt disrespected and that her criticism of my home and family crossed a line. Mia exploded. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and cruel. She said I was trying to sabotage her wedding and that our relationship would never recover. Jordan chimed in on social media, calling me ridiculous and saying it was a simple favor to host a wedding. My friends are split. Some think I did the right thing standing up for my boundaries, while others say I should just let it slide to keep the peace. Since then, my parents and I have been dealing with fallout. Mia has refused to speak to me directly, sending passive-aggressive messages and posting vague posts about family drama ruining special days. Some extended family members have sided with her, saying I should have hosted despite her criticism. Others are quietly supportive, saying that it was reasonable for me to protect my home and family from being disrespected. I understand that weddings are stressful and that couples want things to be perfect, but I also feel that my sister's behavior was over the line. I can't reconcile how she can insult my home and my family, then expect me to cheerfully accommodate her wedding. I don't think I was wrong to say no, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm being too rigid or harsh. Now, weeks later, Mia is planning her wedding at a venue we can all afford, but the tension hasn't subsided. My parents are upset that the family is divided, and I feel guilty that I might have contributed to her stress. On the other hand, I'm also relieved that I don't have to host an event where I feel unwelcome and judged. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my home and family? I'm trying to balance my need for boundaries with the love I have for my sister, but it's hard when she frames me as the villain for protecting my own space and dignity. AITA for refusing to let my brother's family move into my house, even though they're struggling financially? I, 32F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger brother, Matt, 29M. Growing up, we were inseparable, and I always thought we had each other's backs. Matt married his college sweetheart, Laura, 28F, 6 years ago, and they have 2 kids, ages 4 and 2. Up until recently, everything seemed fine, but a situation came up that has put me in a moral dilemma, and I honestly don't know if I'm being unreasonable. About a year ago, Matt and Laura ran into some financial difficulties. Matt was laid off from his job as a graphic designer, and Laura's income as a part-time teacher barely covered the bills. They fell behind on their mortgage and car payments, and eventually, they had to move out of their house. They initially moved in with Laura's parents temporarily, but after a few months, things got tense. Laura's parents weren't happy with the constant noise from the kids, the clutter, and some disagreements over parenting styles. That's when Matt started hinting that maybe they could move in with me. My house is a modest 3-bedroom home that I bought shortly after starting my career. I live alone, and while I do enjoy my independence, I also love having family around occasionally. Matt had stayed over for weekends before, and visits with the kids were always fun. So when he first brought up the idea, I wasn't immediately against it. I said we could discuss it and consider options, but I also told him I needed to think carefully because it would be a huge change. Over the next few months, Matt started mentioning their struggles more frequently. He told me they were about to be homeless if they didn't figure something out. They had tried apartments, but their credit was poor and landlords were hesitant. I could see the stress they were under, and my heart went out to them. I even offered to help them with temporary loans to cover rent or deposits while they found a place. They declined, saying they wanted a more permanent solution and that moving in with me would simplify everything. Finally, a few weeks ago, Matt came over and bluntly asked if they could move in. He said he didn't want to impose, but at this point, they had nowhere else to go. I told him that I was not comfortable with it. I explained that my home is small and having 5 extra people, 2 adults and 2 kids, plus their belongings, would make things crowded. I also value my privacy and my routines, and I don't think I could handle sharing my space long term. I offered again to help them find a rental or to help with deposits and references, but I couldn't agree to them living with me. Matt got very upset. He said I was being selfish, that families should help each other in times of need, and that I was abandoning them when they needed me most. Laura also texted me later, saying I didn't care about their struggles and that I was making things worse for their children. My parents, who live a few hours away, also chimed in, telling me I should just open my home and stop overthinking it. I feel guilty because I do want to help my brother and his family, but I also know myself and my limits. I've had roommates before, and it stressed me out to the point where I felt mentally and emotionally drained. I'm concerned that if I let them move in, I might start resenting them, which would damage our relationship long term. I also don't think that living with me would solve their financial problems, and I worry that it could delay them from becoming independent again. Since then, there's been tension in the family. Matt barely talks to me except for obligatory calls, and he stopped visiting entirely. Laura unfollowed me on social media, and my parents have made subtle comments about me not being family-oriented. A mutual cousin told me that Matt is telling everyone I refused to help when they were at their lowest. I keep getting texts from distant relatives asking me to reconsider. Yvette, try to compromise by suggesting shorter-term solutions, like letting the kids stay over for weekends, babysitting during the day, or giving them financial assistance to secure a rental. But Matt seems to see these gestures as insufficient. He wants all of them to move in immediately, indefinitely. I've also thought about safety and logistics. I live in a small suburban house with one bathroom, a single kitchen, and limited storage. To accommodate them, I'd have to give up my home office, reorganize storage, and share my space entirely. I enjoy hosting family occasionally, but the thought of everyday cohabitation feels suffocating. I worry about constant conflicts over routines, meals, bedtime schedules, and cleanliness. Part of me feels like I should be more selfless, especially since this is my brother and his kids. But another part of me thinks I'm allowed to prioritize my mental health and personal boundaries. I've tried to express that helping them doesn't have to mean living together, and that I'm willing to help in other tangible ways, but they aren't hearing it. Now I'm stuck in this situation where my desire to help conflicts with my ability to handle it practically. I worry that by saying no, I'm being cruel, and it makes me anxious every time I think about family gatherings or future holidays. But if I say yes, I'm terrified it will ruin our relationship over time and create daily stress that I'm not equipped to manage. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move into my house, even though they are struggling financially. I feel like I'm trying to help in other ways, but it doesn't seem to matter to them or my extended family. Has anyone else been in a similar situation? I want to support my family, but I also need to take care of myself. I'm not sure where the line is between being selfish and setting healthy boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my roommate's boyfriend move in after he caused problems before. I, 31F, have been living with my roommate, Emily, 30F, for about 4 years. We met through mutual friends and hit it off, sharing similar lifestyles and schedules. Our apartment is a 2-bedroom, and we split rent, utilities, and chores evenly. Generally, things have gone smoothly, but Emily has a history of bringing people into our home who complicate things, which is why I have clear boundaries about overnight guests and extended stays. About 6 months ago, Emily's boyfriend at the time, Jason, 32M, asked if he could stay with us for a week while his apartment was being renovated. I agreed, reluctantly, under strict conditions. No parties, no friends over without asking, and he needed to follow our house rules. At first, things were fine. Jason seemed polite and respectful, and I thought the arrangement would work. By day 3, the situation started deteriorating. Jason would leave dishes piled in the sink, take long showers at inconvenient times, and leave his clothes all over the living room. I reminded him politely a couple of times, but he shrugged it off, saying he was just comfortable here and didn't want to stress about cleaning. I tried to explain that our shared spaces needed to stay clean for both of us, but he didn't take it seriously. The worst part was that he brought over friends without asking. One evening, he invited 4 people to watch a football game in our living room. They were loud, drank my wine, and left garbage in the kitchen. I asked Emily to talk to him about it, and she told me she didn't want to cause drama and that I should relax a little. I felt frustrated because it wasn't about relaxing, it was about respecting my home and the agreements we made. By the end of the week, Jason had caused more mess than I could handle, and I realized he wasn't respecting boundaries. I spoke with Emily afterward and said that while I understood her relationship with Jason, I could not allow him to stay for extended periods in the future unless he agreed to follow house rules strictly. Emily said she understood, but admitted she hadn't enforced the rules while he was staying. Fast forward to last month, Emily asked if Jason could move in permanently because her lease was ending and she wanted to live with him. I immediately said no. I explained that based on his previous behavior, I could not trust that he would respect our home, and allowing him to move in would disrupt my life and peace. Emily got upset, saying I was being unreasonable and not supportive of her relationship. She argued that he had changed and that I should give him a chance. I stood firm, saying that I was open to him visiting occasionally, but that permanent living arrangements were non-negotiable. Emily accused me of choosing comfort over friendship and sabotaging her relationship, and she started hinting to our mutual friends that I was being selfish. Some of them agree with Emily, suggesting I give him a chance and don't be so rigid, while others understand that my boundaries are reasonable given the previous experience. Since this conversation, our living situation has been tense. Emily has been distant, sometimes passive-aggressive, and frequently brings up how everyone thinks I'm being unreasonable. I've tried to compromise by offering help finding a new place or temporarily storing some of their belongings, but she insists that the only solution is Jason moving in. I feel frustrated because I have tried to maintain fairness, enforce reasonable boundaries, and offer alternatives without being hostile. AITA for refusing to let my roommate's boyfriend move in permanently after he caused significant problems during a previous temporary stay. I want to maintain my friendship with Emily and support her, but I also need to protect my home, peace of mind, and routine. Allowing Jason to move in would almost certainly recreate the chaos from last time, and I cannot put myself in that position. Has anyone else dealt with a friend or roommate wanting to move someone in who previously disrespected shared spaces? How did you enforce boundaries while keeping the friendship intact? I want to be supportive, but I also have to maintain my life and home. AITA for causing a massive family fallout over my sister's wedding. I, 29F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emma, 26F, though we couldn't be more different. She's the kind of person who thrives on attention and being in the spotlight, while I tend to stay quiet and prefer smaller, more intimate gatherings. We grew up in a small town, and our family has a very traditional view of relationships and weddings. I've always been okay with this, usually just observing from the sidelines, but things got really messy recently. Emma got engaged last year to a guy named Kyle, 28M. I didn't know him well at first, but over time, I started noticing a few red flags. He seemed controlling in subtle ways, like deciding unilaterally where they would live, what furniture they should buy, and even questioning Emma about her friendships. I tried to bring it up gently to her a couple of times, but she brushed it off, saying he just cares a lot and that I was being paranoid. I tried to back off because I didn't want to ruin her excitement, but the more I saw, the more uneasy I felt. When it came to the wedding planning, things started getting tense. Emma wanted a very lavish wedding with hundreds of guests, a destination ceremony, and an expensive reception. I've never cared much about extravagant events and have always been more practical, but I also wanted to support her. What really triggered the situation was when she started pressuring me to spend money I didn't have on a bridesmaid dress she picked out without consulting me. The dress was hundreds of dollars, and I work a retail job with student loans I'm still paying off. I explained my financial situation and suggested alternative dresses that were more affordable, but she accused me of not caring about her special day. That stung because I really did care, I just couldn't afford it. Then came the bachelorette party. Emma wanted a huge weekend trip with 15 bridesmaids and their partners to a resort out of state. She assumed I'd go, even though I had already told her I couldn't afford the trip. When I said no, she threw a tantrum and told me I was ruining the experience for everyone. A few of the bridesmaids tried to defend me, saying it was okay not to go, but Emma ignored them and cried to our parents, who ended up siding with her. They said I was being selfish and should just make sacrifices for my sister. The final straw was the bridal shower. Emma had asked me to help plan it, but her instructions were impossible. She wanted a themed event that required everyone to spend money on expensive decorations, catering, and gifts. I tried to compromise with a simpler version, but she got furious, claiming I was sabotaging the party. I started feeling genuinely hurt and frustrated. I told her I couldn't continue doing this if it was going to turn into a financial and emotional burden for me. I also said that her partner, Kyle, seemed controlling and I worried about her, but I did it in a calm, non-accusatory way. That's when everything exploded. Emma started yelling at me in front of our family, saying I was trying to ruin her wedding and her relationship. Kyle jumped in, backing her up, and accused me of being manipulative. My parents, who have always favored Emma's outgoing personality, told me I should apologize and support my sister no matter what. I refused, and things got ugly. Emma started sending passive-aggressive texts, making posts on social media about family drama, and even tried to exclude me from certain wedding events. The wedding itself was a disaster for me emotionally. I went because I didn't want to completely cut ties with my family, but Emma and Kyle barely acknowledged my presence. During the reception, I overheard Kyle making snide remarks to other guests about me being the bitter sister who can't be happy for anyone. I left early, which caused more backlash from our parents. Since then, my family hasn't spoken much to me. Emma and Kyle act like I'm the villain, and my parents occasionally make passive comments about sisterly duty. I've tried reaching out to explain my perspective, but Emma refuses to listen, saying that I embarrassed her publicly and shouldn't contact her. Even distant relatives have started taking sides, which has made holidays and family events extremely tense. I've been feeling guilty because I love my sister and I don't want to lose my entire family, but I also feel like I stood up for my boundaries and tried to protect her from a toxic situation. I didn't want to ruin her happiness, but I also couldn't continue being gaslit into spending money I didn't have and pretending everything was fine. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to comply with my sister's extravagant wedding plans, expressing concern about her partner, and setting boundaries, even though it caused a major family rift? Or was my family unreasonable for expecting me to sacrifice my finances and well-being for someone else's ideal day? Since then, I've been contemplating therapy to process the fallout, but the idea of reconnecting with my sister seems almost impossible without her acknowledging the issues. I'm torn between wanting peace and maintaining my own mental health. I guess I'm posting here because I genuinely don't know if I overstepped or if my family's reaction was truly unfair. I'm also trying to figure out how to navigate holidays and future family events. Should I continue to reach out, or is it healthier to maintain distance until emotions cool down? Any advice or perspective would help. AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay with me after she repeatedly disrespected my home. I, 34F, have a cousin, Laura, 33F, who I've known since childhood. Growing up, we were close, but as adults, we have very different lifestyles. I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I like routines, quiet, and keeping my home orderly. Laura recently lost her apartment because she couldn't keep up with rent after losing her job, and she asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured things out. I was hesitant because of a previous experience. About 3 years ago, Laura stayed with me for a few weeks when she had financial troubles. At first, she seemed polite and appreciative, but things quickly deteriorated. She ignored house rules, left dishes in the sink for days, spread her belongings around the living room, and often had friends over without asking. She also made late-night phone calls and played loud music while I was trying to work from home. I reminded her multiple times, but she brushed it off, saying I was too strict and didn't understand her situation. By the end of that stay, my apartment was a mess, and I was completely stressed out. I had to spend extra hours cleaning and organizing things that she had left in disarray. When I told her she needed to find a place of her own next time, she got defensive and claimed I was cold and unsupportive. I realized that while I wanted to help her, letting her stay in my home long-term was not a sustainable solution. Fast forward to last month, she contacted me again, asking if she could stay temporarily while she looked for another apartment. I told her honestly that I could not host her full-time because of my work, my need for personal space, and our previous experience. I offered alternatives. I could help her look for temporary housing, assist with applications for financial aid, or let her store some essential belongings in my apartment while she arranged a new place. Laura was upset and immediately accused me of being selfish. She said that I was choosing comfort over family and that I didn't care about her struggles. She insisted that I was the only relative she could count on in the city and that refusing her request was cruel. I explained that my refusal was not about a lack of care, but about maintaining boundaries to protect my home and mental health. I told her that helping her find housing or resources would be more effective than letting her stay in my apartment again. Since then, our relationship has been tense. She has been distant, passive-aggressive, and has made comments to mutual friends implying that I don't help family and am unsympathetic. Some family members have taken her side, suggesting I should make sacrifices for family, while others agree that my boundaries are reasonable given past experiences. I feel hurt because I genuinely want to help her, but I also cannot compromise my well-being and home stability. AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay with me after she repeatedly disrespected my space during her previous stay. I've tried to offer practical alternatives and help her in ways that don't involve full-time residency, but she insists that staying with me is the only solution. I want to maintain our relationship and support her, but I also need to protect my home and mental health. Has anyone else dealt with a family member who repeatedly asked to stay despite past problems? How did you enforce boundaries while keeping the relationship intact? I want to help Laura in ways that are sustainable and safe for both of us, but I cannot allow history to repeat itself. AITA for refusing to babysit my nephew because of my sister's behavior. So this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to keep it as organized as possible. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lena, 25F, who has a 3-year-old son, Eli. For context, Lena and I grew up in a household where my parents were very hands-off, emotionally distant, and often left my sister and me to figure things out ourselves. Because of that, I've always been a bit more independent and responsible compared to her. Lena, on the other hand, has always been more impulsive and a little reckless, though she's sweet in her own way. Over the past few years, I've been living in a small apartment in the city, working a full-time job that requires irregular hours. Lena lives in the same city, but about 30 minutes away. She and I have a fairly strained relationship, mostly because she tends to rely on me to solve her problems while rarely respecting my boundaries. I've always tried to help when I can, but it feels like she expects me to drop everything whenever she wants. Recently, Lena had to take an emergency shift at work because her regular babysitter canceled. She called me at 7 a.m., completely frantic, asking me to watch Eli for the entire day. Normally, I would try to help her out, but I had a big project at work that day and a doctor's appointment I couldn't reschedule. I explained all this calmly and said that I simply couldn't help her this time. Her response shocked me. She started yelling through the phone about how I was selfish and that I never put family first. She reminded me that I had no kids of my own and that I owed it to her because I had more free time than she did. I tried to stay calm and told her that my schedule wasn't negotiable and that I had my own responsibilities to manage. She hung up angrily and later sent me a text saying that I was a terrible sister and that Eli would be upset because I never care about him. After that incident, our parents got involved. They called me separately and said I should just make time for family and that Lena was under a lot of stress, implying I should have dropped everything for her. I tried to explain that I had commitments that day and that I frequently help Lena when I can, but they insisted that family comes first and that I was being unreasonable. I pointed out that I help her regularly, watching Eli after work, picking him up from daycare, helping with groceries, but apparently that didn't count because I didn't respond to her last-minute request. Things escalated when Lena started sending me passive-aggressive messages, like memes about selfish siblings or posts about how some people just don't care about family. I didn't respond because I didn't want to get into another argument, but it's been making me feel guilty and stressed. My friends say I did nothing wrong, but part of me wonders if I'm really being selfish. I've been trying to maintain my boundaries with Lena, but every time I do, it feels like I'm being punished emotionally. I want to help her, but I also have my own life, and it seems like she doesn't respect that. I've considered suggesting professional help for her stress or setting up a regular babysitting schedule we both agree on, but I haven't yet because I feel like she would see that as me forcing her to plan. Recently, she brought it up again during a family dinner, asking why I won't help when it really matters and pointing out that Eli was so sad I couldn't watch him. My parents chimed in, subtly siding with her, which made me feel attacked in front of everyone. I tried to calmly explain again that I wasn't available and that I often help her in other ways, but they seemed unconvinced. Lena's tone became sarcastic and accusatory, implying I didn't care about family at all. After dinner, I stayed home because I didn't want to escalate things further, but I've been feeling really anxious and guilty. I've been thinking maybe I should just give in and watch Eli more often, but part of me worries that this would set a precedent where Lena always expects me to drop everything for her. I've tried explaining that I want to help, but I need her to plan ahead and respect my time, yet she seems incapable of seeing it from my perspective. I also worry about my relationship with my nephew. I love Eli and want to be a positive influence in his life, but I don't want it to come at the expense of my mental health or my own responsibilities. I'm starting to dread interactions with Lena because it almost always turns into a guilt trip or confrontation, which makes me feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. I should mention that this isn't the first time Lena has pulled something like this. In the past, she's called me in tears over minor inconveniences, her car breaking down, her washing machine not working, her work schedule changing, and expected me to solve everything immediately. I've helped when I could, but there have been many instances where I've set boundaries and faced backlash. It feels like she's learned that persistence and emotional pressure will get her what she wants. A few friends and colleagues have suggested I clearly define my limits and even block her during emergencies if needed, but I'm hesitant because I don't want to ruin our family relationship completely. At the same time, the constant stress and accusations make me feel like I'm being emotionally manipulated, and it's exhausting. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to babysit my nephew when I genuinely had unavoidable commitments. I feel like I'm trying to balance being a caring sister with maintaining my own life, but every time I enforce a boundary, it turns into a family crisis. I've been walking this tightrope for years, and I'm starting to wonder if standing up for myself is really selfish or if I'm finally putting my own responsibilities first. I just want to have a healthy relationship with my sister and nephew without constantly being guilt-tripped, but it seems almost impossible. I'm hoping for advice on whether I truly overstepped as a sister or if setting boundaries in this situation is reasonable. Also, any tips on handling Lena and my parents in a way that doesn't completely destroy family ties would be appreciated. Has anyone else experienced this kind of family pressure? How do you maintain your own life while still being supportive? I'm feeling torn between guilt, frustration, and the desire to protect my own time and mental health. Ida? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding when she excluded me from planning. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emma, 26F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but she has always been very controlling and likes to do things her way without much input from anyone else. Our parents passed away when we were teenagers, and we've relied on each other a lot, but that dynamic also sometimes led to tension. I've always tried to support her, even when I didn't entirely agree with her choices. Recently, Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Matt, 27M, and immediately started planning the wedding. From the beginning, she told me she didn't want anyone involved in the planning except for her best friend and her maid of honor. At first, I tried to respect that, thinking that maybe she wanted a smaller circle to discuss the details with. But it quickly became clear that she wasn't willing to compromise on anything. She would ask my opinion on very superficial things like flower colors, and then completely ignore my suggestions. When I tried to discuss bigger issues, she would shut me down, saying, "This is my day, and I want it my way." As the months went by, the tension escalated. I offered to help with practical things like addressing invitations, managing RSVPs, or helping with logistics, but she refused, saying, "I don't want to stress you out." While on the surface this seemed considerate, it felt like she was deliberately keeping me out of the loop. I noticed that other family members and friends were included in planning aspects, but I was continuously excluded. About 3 months before the wedding, she sent me a list of costs she expected me to contribute. The total was around $4,000, which included part of the venue, catering, flowers, and a portion of her dress. I was shocked because I had not been involved in the planning in any meaningful way and felt that I had little say in how the money would be spent. When I questioned her about this, she said, "Well, it's traditional for sisters to help, and since you're my only sibling, it makes sense you would contribute. You've always said you want to help me, right?" I told her that I didn't have a problem contributing to the wedding if I was included in decisions and if my opinions were respected, but paying a significant portion without having any input felt unfair. She became upset and accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said that my refusal to pay was hurting her emotionally and that I was putting money over family. I tried to explain that I fully support her and want her wedding to be beautiful, but I don't feel comfortable paying such a large sum for something I have no control over. I suggested that I could help with smaller costs, like a gift, my own outfit, or helping with minor logistical things. But she rejected these compromises. The situation came to a head at a family dinner. I was venting to my cousin about how excluded I felt, and Emma overheard. She stormed out, yelling that I was trying to ruin her wedding. Our family got involved, and suddenly I was being painted as the villain. My aunt said that I should just pay the money and stop being dramatic, while my uncle suggested that perhaps I was jealous because Emma was getting married before me. I found this incredibly frustrating because this had nothing to do with jealousy. I have a long-term partner, but have no plans to rush into marriage, and everything to do with fairness and respect. Since then, my sister has been cold toward me. She refuses to speak unless it's about logistics that directly involve me, like seating arrangements or rehearsal schedules, and even then she's terse. I feel hurt because I've always supported her emotionally, financially in smaller ways, and helped her through personal crises, but now she sees me as a threat or an obstacle. Some friends say I should just pay to keep the peace, but I don't want to feel resentful on what is supposed to be her happiest day. Others tell me that my sister is being unreasonable by expecting me to pay so much without input. I understand that weddings are expensive and that siblings often help, but I feel like the usual etiquette assumes mutual involvement and willingness to contribute, not coercion. I still want to attend the wedding and celebrate with her, but I feel like a second-class guest if I'm being financially pressured while being excluded from planning. I've considered contributing a smaller, symbolic amount to show support without being coerced, but I'm worried this won't be enough and could escalate tension. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding when she excluded me from all meaningful planning and decisions. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.